Have you ever noticed how many men past the age of 50 step into relationships not because they truly desire a partner, but because they fear being alone? It is a silent fear that is rarely discussed, especially among men at this stage of life. Before we go any further, tap the like button. It helps this message reach other men who genuinely need to hear it. And let me know in the comments. Do you think men over 50 should date casually or seek something serious, and why? Now, let's move into today's topic. And yes, it is a strong one. 5 reasons to avoid having a girlfriend after 50 and 60, viewed through the lens of modern stoicism. Before you assume this is about bitterness, resentment, or choosing isolation, let me be very clear. This is about strength. This is about mental clarity. This is about emotional independence. And this is about recognizing the traps older men often fall into without even realizing it. Traps that slowly drain their energy, disrupt their peace, and dull their masculine edge. Let's begin with a fundamental truth. The enemy here is not women. The real enemy is attachment without awareness. It is the pattern many men over 50 fall into, where they lower their standards and boundaries simply because they feel grateful for attention. It is the hunger for validation after divorce, loneliness, or long years of feeling invisible. It is the false belief that a girlfriend will repair a void in your life that only discipline, purpose, and self respect can truly heal. Stoicism gives us a powerful rule: never tie your happiness to something you cannot control. And let's be honest with ourselves. A girlfriend is exactly that, something you cannot fully control. So let's break down the reasons, starting with the first three. These apply to many men in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia who reach their 50s and 60s and suddenly feel pressure to settle down again. The first reason is this: most women your age are not genuinely searching for love, they are searching for stability. This is not an insult, it is reality. And Stoicism teaches us to face reality, not escape from it. When you are a man in your 50s or 60s, you finally possess qualities younger men lack: stability, life experience, emotional calm, a grounded masculine presence, and financial understanding. Women, especially those in your age group, notice this immediately. But here is the uncomfortable truth: many are not drawn to you because of who you are at your core, they are drawn to what you provide. And many men over 50 mistake this attention for genuine desire. Here is the Stoic lesson: attraction based on usefulness collapses the moment that usefulness fades. Think about it this way: if you buy a boat, suddenly people want to spend more time with you. Are they there for you, or are they there for the boat? Older men often become the boat without realizing it. I have worked with many men who entered relationships believing she truly cares about me as a person, only to realize months later they are paying for everything, handling every emotional issue, rearranging their routines, and receiving very little in return. This is not cruelty. It is not malicious intent. It is human nature. But it becomes dangerous when you walk into it unaware. The second reason is that you will lose your freedom much faster than you expect. Men in their 50s and 60s finally reach a point where life begins to feel lighter and clearer. You have survived heartbreak, career pressure, raising children, family conflict, and health scares. You earned your peace. You earned your quiet mornings. You earned the right to say no without guilt. But the moment you enter a committed relationship, something shifts. You exchange freedom for companionship. And very often, the companionship does not match the freedom you sacrifice. You begin adjusting your schedule, reducing your hobbies, managing someone else's emotions, and shrinking your world just to maintain harmony. Stoicism teaches us to protect the inner fortress. Your peace is not negotiable. Your time is valuable. Your energy shapes the quality of your entire life. Yet many older men give all of this away within months of getting a girlfriend. Imagine a man who retires and is finally ready to travel, exercise, read, meditate, and build a new chapter. He meets a woman and suddenly trips are postponed. Gym routines fade away and weekends revolve around her plans. He begins carrying her stress, her family problems, and her expectations. His inner fortress is not invaded by an enemy, but by his own lack of boundaries. The third reason is emotional responsibility slowly shifts onto you. This is where many men underestimate the real cost of relationships at this stage of life. Women after 50 often carry emotional weight, past heartbreaks, divorces, unresolved resentment, struggles with adult children, financial anxiety, social insecurity, and health concerns. You become the emotional anchor. You become the steady ground she leans on. You become the listener, the fixer, the comfort provider, the emotional safety net. This does not make her a bad person, but it reveals a truth. When you carry someone else's emotional load, you reduce the space for your own growth. Older men forget how exhausting this can be. At 25, you have energy to survive emotional storms. At 55 or 60, that energy is better spent protecting your health, purpose, and peace. The relationship turns into a burden rather than support. Stoicism teaches that a man must manage his own inner weather. Yet many older men find themselves trying to calm someone else's storm instead. And when you constantly regulate another person's emotions, you slowly fade. Your needs slip into the background. Your goals lose priority. Self mastery is exchanged for emotional caretaking, and it happens quietly without warning. The fourth reason is that relationships after 50 often turn you into a caretaker. This is a truth many men avoid saying out loud. A girlfriend at this age can easily become another responsibility rather than a true partner. Not always, but often enough to be cautious. Women over 50 face real challenges. Changes in health, hormones, mobility, long-term stress, emotional fatigue, money concerns, complex families, aging parents, adult children, and even grandchildren needing support. And who steps in emotionally and practically? You do. Not because you plan to, but because you are steady, calm, logical, grounded, and dependable. And when you are that kind of man, you absorb everything. Stoicism warns against carrying burdens that are not yours. But in later life relationships, boundaries blur quickly. You begin altering your routines. You sacrifice your peace. You cancel plans to help her family. You become the driver, the planner, the emergency contact, and the emotional stabilizer. You entered wanting companionship, and suddenly you are responsible for holding another life together. I have seen this pattern repeatedly. A man in his 60s meets a woman who seems light-hearted and relaxed. Months later, she is dealing with medical visits, problems with adult children, unresolved trauma, insecurity about aging, or stress from the past. And who carries it? You do, because you care, because you are reliable, because you do not want to appear cold or selfish. But here is the hard truth. When you accept roles you never chose, you slowly lose the man you spent decades becoming. You become responsible for a life that is not yours. And once this dynamic is set, it almost never reverses. The fifth reason is that you risk losing the most powerful phase of your masculine rebirth. This may be the most important point of all. Men between 50 and 70 enter a rare and meaningful stage of life. Your hormones may be lower than at 30, but your presence is stronger. You are wiser, calmer, more selective, and more confident without needing to say much. This is your renewal period. But the moment you attach yourself to a girlfriend who does not align with your pace, values, or lifestyle, that renewal can fade quickly. Relationships demand compromise, and compromise often becomes the enemy of personal growth. You worked your entire life to reach this stage. Your mornings belong to you. Your finances are more stable. Your emotional reactions are calmer. You understand yourself better. You know what weakens you and what strengthens you. Yet once you commit, many men fall into the same pattern. They prioritize her needs over their own. They adjust habits to avoid conflict. They limit their freedom. They silence their desires to keep peace. They shrink their world to fit the relationship. Slowly, mental and physical growth takes a backseat. Your rebirth becomes smaller than it was meant to be. Stoicism teaches that purpose must sit at the center of a man's life. Not romance, not approval, not companionship, purpose. Yet many men over 50 become so energized by attention that they push their mission aside. They stop building, exploring, and sharpening themselves. They confuse comfort with fulfillment. They confuse closeness with meaning. Over time, they wake up realizing their days are full, but their spirit feels confined. This message is not telling you to reject love forever. It is reminding you that at this stage of life, your peace is priceless. Your energy is limited. Your time matters more than ever. Choose carefully where you invest it. A relationship can bring warmth, comfort, and companionship into your life, but it can also slowly dim the inner fire you spent decades building. The cost is not only emotional, it is spiritual, energetic, and deeply personal. It is the cost of becoming a smaller man just to keep someone else comfortable. And at this stage of life, you must ask yourself honestly, is that price really worth paying? Now make this absolutely clear in your mind. This message is not telling you to avoid women, avoid love, or avoid connection altogether. It is saying something far more important and far more powerful. Never step into a relationship from weakness, from loneliness, or from fear of being alone. Enter only from strength, self respect, and full awareness of who you are and what you need. A stoic man chooses carefully. He does not cling. He does not chase attention. He does not beg for affection. He does not shrink himself. He evaluates calmly. He observes patiently. He decides from clarity, not from emotional hunger or desperation. The true stoic path is not about rejecting relationships. It is about rejecting any relationship that costs you your peace, your purpose, or your freedom. If you ever choose to have a woman in your life, let it be because she genuinely adds value to your world, not because she fills an empty space inside you. Emptiness should be addressed through purpose, growth, and self connection, not through another person. You may ask yourself what a man over 50 or over 60 should actually do instead. The answer is simpler than most people think, but it requires discipline and honesty. Always put purpose first. Your mission, your work, your calling, whatever gives your life meaning must remain non negotiable. It is the backbone of your masculinity and your identity. Without it, everything else becomes unstable. Value peace more than companionship. A calm, quiet home is worth far more than a chaotic relationship filled with tension and emotional noise. Choose peace every time, even if it means walking alone for a while. If you decide to date, do it casually and consciously, not from obligation. If you enjoy feminine energy, enjoy it without surrendering your freedom. Be clear about your intentions. Be respectful. Be honest. Do not promise what you cannot sustain. Maintain strong emotional boundaries. Support when it feels right, but do not absorb someone else's emotional weight. Be present, but do not carry burdens that are not yours. Protect your renaissance. This phase of life is rare, powerful, and earned. Do not let anyone, including yourself, weaken it or distract you from it. A man who rises strong after 50 becomes someone younger men naturally respect, and women of all ages feel drawn to him. Not because he is trying to impress, not because he is chasing approval, but because he is centered within himself. Many men over 50 do not realize how quickly their identity can shift when they enter a relationship without full awareness. At this stage, your sense of self is more refined than ever. You have lived through struggles, losses, successes, failures, and quiet lessons that shaped a calmer, wiser version of you. But the moment you step into a dynamic where your boundaries soften too much, where your decisions revolve around someone else's emotions, you risk drifting away from the man you worked so hard to become. This loss of self does not happen overnight. It begins with small compromises that feel harmless. You skip your morning routine. You delay your workout. You stop doing what grounds you. You avoid expressing your needs. You stay silent to keep the peace. Each choice feels small, but over time they accumulate. Slowly you organize your life around someone else's moods, reactions, and expectations instead of your own values. At this age, the danger is greater because you have less emotional energy to waste. Younger men recover more easily from imbalance, older men pay a higher price, stress affects their health more deeply, emotional weight drains them faster, and losing freedom cuts deeper because it took decades to earn. Modern Stoicism highlights something crucial. A man must clearly understand what is his responsibility and what is not. Many older men enter relationships with good intentions. They want to help, support, uplift, and be dependable. These qualities are honorable. But without awareness, empathy becomes a trap that leads to self-sacrifice. Slowly, they stop growing. They stop exploring new ideas. They stop protecting their mental space. Ironically, the more they give up their identity, the less grounded and attractive they become. Women are not drawn to a man who loses himself. They are drawn to a man who remains rooted, stable, and confident in his direction. This is why many relationships for men over 50 feel draining instead of nourishing. They enter with hope, but without boundaries. They enter with softness, but without structure. They want connection, but forget that connection can never replace purpose. When a man reaches this stage of life, the most powerful thing he can do is remain centered, not closed off, not emotionally distant, centered, connected to his purpose, his peace, and his identity. When he lives this way, the right woman does not drain him. She fits into his life naturally. The wrong woman falls away on her own because she cannot pull a grounded man off his path. This is the deeper truth behind the message. A relationship itself does not destroy a man. A relationship entered from weakness does. A relationship entered from fear does. A relationship entered without purpose does. But a relationship entered from strength becomes something entirely different. It becomes an addition, not a replacement, a complement, not a compromise, a partnership, not a burden. And the older a man becomes, the more vital this distinction is. This is why Stoicism resonates so deeply with men in this stage of life. It teaches them to stand firm in their inner world. It teaches them to evaluate without emotional noise. It teaches them that not every connection deserves commitment, Most men over 50 have spent much of their lives putting others first. Partners, children, family, work, and social expectations. They have carried responsibility for decades. For many, this is the first time they are truly free to live for themselves. Yet, ironically, this is when many rush into relationships out of fear of being alone. But being alone at this stage is not a weakness. It is a gift. It is an opportunity. It is the chance to rebuild your identity without pressure, free to explore who you truly are, free to design a life that reflects your values instead of old obligations. Many men discover new passions during these years. They travel, they improve their health, they build businesses. They deepen their spirituality. They gain clarity and confidence they never had before. These transformations often happen because they are no longer emotionally entangled or constantly adjusting to someone else's needs. When a man stays grounded in his purpose, he becomes naturally selective. He does not give his time freely. He does not give his emotional strength freely. He does not make himself available by default. This selectiveness protects his renaissance. It ensures that if a woman enters his life, she steps into a life that is already full, balanced, and meaningful, not a life waiting to be rescued from loneliness. Men often underestimate how attractive this version of themselves becomes, not only to women their own age, but to younger women and to society as a whole. People are drawn to calm strength and quiet power only emerges when a man refuses to lose himself again. The deeper truth is this. For a man over 50, the greatest danger is not being single. The greatest danger is giving away the peace he spent his entire life earning. Relationships are not the enemy. Losing yourself is. And unless a man enters a relationship with awareness, strong boundaries, purpose, and emotional clarity, he will repeat the same draining patterns from the past. The older a man becomes, the more sacred his life is, the more intentional he must be. His time grows more valuable, his energy more precious, his peace non-negotiable. This is why men who understand this shift move into a new kind of strength: quiet, steady, measured, deeply attractive, completely free. In the end, having a girlfriend is not the real issue. The issue is entering a relationship blindly without understanding the cost. A stoic man over 50 understands this clearly. Freedom is priceless, peace is sacred, purpose is everything. Guard them fiercely. If a woman strengthens these things, welcome her. If she weakens them, walk away without regret. The man you are becoming in your 50s and 60s is far more valuable than the temporary comfort of any relationship. If this message spoke to you, comment "I choose peace" below so I know you understand the deeper lesson. And of course, like the video so more men can find this message and protect what truly matters.